So actually, we'll follow on a very good question that was asked last. I hope that our panelists will address some of that as well. Regarding the access to different large language models. So it's a great pleasure and honor to have three panelists today, and they represent both leaders in the research community as well as the funding agency. So what I have asked each of our panelists to do is to prepare a very short 10-minute presentation to sort of provide a little bit of background about what they do, who they are, and then we will open the floor for questions. So let's get started. So the first panelist will be Professor Vershpour from RMIT.
All right. So I have been spending the last 18 months or so explaining to people in the medical establishment and beyond, basically the public, what LLMs are. And I know almost everybody in this room already knows, but maybe just a show of hands. Is there anybody who doesn't have experience with the internal workings of an LLM? Okay, at least one person.
What do you mean by internal work?
Like, do you understand? Well, do you understand that an LLM is only a next word predictor? The person do you understand that? Okay, good. Next token, thank you. Yes, but anyway, okay. So then I will go through all this extremely quickly because you already know all of this, and then I will get to the point. But many people out there in the world do not understand this. And so, they're attributing what I like to call magical thinking to the LLMs. And I will just say that we've heard a lot today about really nice applications for LLMs, but I think we really need to be asking whether these are the right tools for solving some of the tasks that we want to do, particularly in those very sensitive medical examples that we were just hearing about. Okay, so right, so we have deep learning, we do training, we do mass language modeling, etc. This is my favorite example. Everybody goes, the cat sat on the mat, right? That's exactly what ChatGPT is doing. Of course, I always have the cute person in the audience was like, head, pillow. And I'm like, yes, but that's the point, right? Is that most people, so probabilistically, the best word to fill that blank is mat, because when we were, those of us who learned to read in an English speaking kindergarten, we were reading readers that use this pattern all the time, because rhyming is really useful for helping to learn word sound correspondences. So anyway, okay, so then we have transformers. Do people understand how transformers work? Mostly, yes. Okay. I love this little picture because it kind of tells you, okay. So the key innovation of a transformer was that we're folding the context of the words into the representation. So the reason that the BERT model, when it introduced the transformers, worked so much better than all the other representations that came before is really because it's folding in this context into the representation, so that a word like apple has a different representation when it's in a sentence with words like laptop and keyboard than when it's in a sentence like snack and breakfast. Okay, so all right, good. You all understand this. I think one important point that is often missed when we talk about these systems is that actually they've been supervised. So again, we always focus on the fact that these models are sort of pre-trained from lots and lots of data, but we can't forget that there is actually supervision happening to tune the models to the kinds of prompts that we expect users to provide. And, you know, OpenAI, I think, has removed all this stuff from their website, which I think raises a bunch of questions. But, you know, at least when they first came out, they were transparent about the fact that actually they're doing supervision to drive the model towards the sorts of outputs that humans like. And the initial stage was literally give a human a prompt, have them write a response to it, and use that to train the parameters of the model, or at least the outer parameters. Okay, so any of you all heard of Emily Bender? She likes to remind us that these systems are basically stochastic parrots. Okay, they're parroting back the texts that have been fed into these machines. Now, they're parroting back in a highly fluent, sophisticated way. They've captured a lot of the really complex probabilities in these sequences because they're so huge, right? They can memorize huge amounts of patterns in these data. But we can't forget that they are literally a next word prediction tool and nothing more than that. Well, except with supervision on top. Okay, good. So what can go wrong when we have this kind of model? Well, you know, OpenAI helpfully told us right at the beginning what could go wrong, right? They told us they can generate incorrect information. They can produce harmful instructions or biased content. They have limited knowledge of the world and events after 2021. Obviously, this is a moving target. But I think we need to remember these things that can go wrong when we think about these systems. And they've been pre-trained on stuff, a whole bunch of stuff that, you know, we heard recently. They're running out of data, apparently. They think they can't make these models better because they've literally ingested the entire internet. Now, we have to think, well, what's not in the internet? And when we're thinking about a probability model, what are the biases that are on the internet that are now captured as, you know, codified as knowledge in the context of these LLMs? These are questions we have to constantly be asking. Importantly, if you want to do anything with something that's not English, now luckily for us, most of science is written in English, you know, and most of the internet is English. But if you're interested in, say, looking at Chinese text, well, a lot of Chinese text is behind a firewall, the Great Firewall of China, and so it's not in, presumably, ChatGPT or most of the open domain models. Of course, if we have out-of-date sources, you know, in a scientific context, the knowledge is constantly evolving. So we have to be worried about this. Okay, so then, of course, we have the problems of confabulation. We have the problems of unintended, hopefully, harm that can happen from these systems. So I wanted to just run through a number of cases where I think, you know, for me, these models are obviously amazing, but they're starting to, I'm starting to ask questions about how effective they are and whether they're really solving the kinds of problems that we're interested in. So we've been trying to do some work on intervention extraction, and this is in the context of preclinical animal studies, and we're trying to simply identify the intervention that's being examined in a particular paper. And, you know, as you can see from these numbers, we have a very small data set. But we find that actually just doing ChatGPT or even GPT-4 for this particular task doesn't particularly work very well. And we ended up with a model where we use regular expressions, yes, regular expressions, basically a dictionary, to identify the interventions that we know are relevant, and then use some filtering strategies with ChatGPT, and that works much better than using ChatGPT alone. So, you know, again, these are just little stories that I'm going to share with you to point out that maybe they're not always as good as we think, and particularly when we're looking at benchmark data in aggregate, we're looking at numbers that mask a lot of the actual linguistic problems that we bump into because of the fact that they don't model language in any kind of structural or semantic way. So we've been doing some work. This is my student, Tin. He's been looking at the impact of negation. And here's a fun example, right? The normal respiratory rate for an adult male is, here's your multiple choice question. Whether you say is or is not, it gives you the same answer. Now, obviously, this is going to vary depending on the question and the particular language model that you use. But we are finding that negation is basically something these models don't see, and that's a problem if you think about reasoning under negation. So here's another example where we interact negation with entailment. Does a man owns a dog entail a man owns an animal? Yes. It does, since a dog is a type of animal. Does a man does not own a dog entail a man does not own an animal? It confidently tells us yes. Okay, so maybe not. So then we have more examples. I have another student named Ramad who's looking at numerical reasoning in the context of these models. Here's some examples of the sorts of tasks that we're trying to get the language models to do. And here we're contrasting the base language models with instruction tuned models. You have to do instruction tuning. So basically you have to give the model examples in order for it to work effectively. And not just in prompt, in context examples, you have to actually do tuning. And so we've done some studies. This is all still unpublished data. But so what I'd like to say to you is that, you know, these models straight off the shelf are not really good enough, right? Here's an example. Here's a fun one, actually. So Alfonso Valencia's group did some work on preparing a data set shared task for genetic variant and disease extraction. And the difference being that the language data that they wanted us to analyze was Spanish. And we thought it would be fun to just see what happened if we prompted ChatGPT to do this task. And so here's some outputs. We did find that there was a hallucination. So it found a disease in the text, which isn't there at all. Now that's easy to filter because we try to match back into the text. And so we can immediately identify the hallucinations just by cross-checking the output with the text itself. But, you know, again, a point being hallucinations happen. And unless we have some strategy for detecting them, we may have a problem. Interestingly, this experiment, this is work done by one of my undergraduate research students. So kudos to the undergraduates in the room. I think, you know, they're able to do some fun things. But we found that under one-shot, two-shot, and so on, scenarios, in context learning scenarios, prompting in English, giving the instruction in English worked better than prompting in Spanish, even though the text itself and the task itself was oriented to Spanish language. So that tells us something about the tuning process and the supervision process from these systems. Okay, so I'm running out of time. I did want to make the point that not all uses of these language models are generative. And I think we often forget this, that actually perhaps the best way we can use these models is in the context as a representation, essentially. So in the context of task-specific training or fine-tuning, where we use the pre-trained models as a foundation, but then we tune it towards specific problems that we want to solve. And we've heard a lot about RAG today. RAG is also obviously quite effective, but it does depend on whether you have appropriate things you can retrieve from. And that's not always the case. So just to make a couple of other minor points, I do think we need to be talking about using these tools in human-in-the-loop context. And particularly, we advocated in 2022, so long before this explosion of LLMs onto the world, that really we needed to be thinking about using these sorts of systems as in micro task kind of scenarios, because we can build much more robust and reliable tools that are focused on narrow problems, and then leave the really complex integration of information for a human being. And I'll just make one final point. So we actually heard today, and the previous talk mentioned how BERT score is not necessarily a great way of measuring the output of these systems. It's certainly better than BLUE and ROUGE and the other metrics that basically count word overlap. But I think there was a paper published with an OpenAI author, and therefore it got published in Nature, using an approach based on using multiple LLMs to basically control confabulations. And this is a kind of summary of the method that I presented in a commentary on that publication, also in Nature News and Views. And the point that I was trying to make in my commentary was that there are now we're talking about using LLMs to basically police LLMs, and then evaluate LLMs with LLMs. And fighting with fire was the only metaphor I could come up with in my head. And I think we have to ask, when we fight fire with fire, often it works, right? It's very effective. We put down our fire line and we clear out the brush, and it stops the fire in its tracks. But occasionally we inadvertently fuel the fire. And I think we're in this space now where we really need to be thinking about, what's the right way to put things together. And maybe LLMs and ensembles of LLMs, and I think Kathy's doing a bit of that, is one way to do it in a way that so that we can get controls against each other. And I'll leave you with my joke.
Thank you so much. We'll move, given the time, we'll move straight to the second speaker.
Sorry I went over time, but I had to do the background. That's my excuse.
That's good.
Yeah. Here's that.
Right.
Okay.
Kathy
awesome.
Wu from University of Delaware.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So for this short presentation, I'm going to focus on two topics. One, so using the UniProt AI initiative as an example, and also talk a little bit about the knowledge graph project that we have at University of Delaware. So let's see, go to the next slide. Where
Down arrow should work.
down arrow. Enter. Okay, enter works. Okay. So for the UniProt AI initiatives, that we have kind of two aspects. The aspect of getting the user community with AI-ready data, and the aspect of collaborative development with the AI communities to enhance the UniProt knowledge base. And again, I just use UniProt as example because I'm sure you all have various type projects that with this similar type of ideas. And so the first goal here is to organize the UniProt data to be AI-ready, to enable the community to harness the power of AI using UniProt data. Indeed, a recent survey of researchers who study AI, developing AI algorithms, indicating that lack of the data to train the AI models to run AI on was a major barrier. And so the goal here is for us to provide well-curated data to foster AI research and democratize the data access for both AI researchers and regular users. And I'm also going to share areas of our AI development projects, the PROT NLM language model for protein name function prediction, an example of using large language models for extracting structural information from text, and integrating text mining and large language models for functional annotation. So the sequence embedding. So for the AI readiness or UniProt data, we provide the sequence embedding. As we know, the protein sequence embedding really help encode functional structural property of a protein within a sequence, and that embedding allows us to present that in a vector representation. And so our this AI readiness dissemination mechanism is to provide the data via sequence embeddings to save the community time to need to compute. And so we have the generic framework that could be used for different AI tasks. And these are the pre-computed UniProt knowledge base data sets. And one can also use user-tailored data set using our user interface here. And in terms of the Prot NLM language models, this is a collaboration between the EBI group and the DeepMind group. And so the first iteration of the collaboration with Rudy Colwell and Max Bielaski at DeepMind is develop a system called this Prot NLM, where the language model essentially use encoders of function, including the sequences, to predict protein function of uncharacterized proteins. And so currently using that system, already more than 30 million uncharacterized proteins are annotated with Prot NLM. But meanwhile, this collaboration continue to expand the scope of prediction to many other fields, such as the EC classification, enzyme function. And we are in the process of preliminary assessment of the annotation and development of evidence strategy. And so this could be through evidence tracking and comparison with other annotations, such as annotations in the entry and through p-hammer alignment. The next one, we develop, we essentially apply and explore the use large language model for a number of tasks at UniProt, both for manual curation and automatic annotation. So the manual curation includes scanning the published papers with focus on gene or function of interest and writing summaries from multiple papers, and automatic annotation include extract information to create annotation types. So one pilot here focus on literature summarization and extraction of annotation types. In this case, the Go terms, where we use the two approaches here. The extraction of Go terms using large language model from the literature, and then use the Spires, which is onto a GPT tool developed by Chris Mungo for recognition, name recognition extraction. And so it's a wonderful collaborative project that allow us to look into the functional annotation. So my own group, as I presented earlier today, we also bring text mining and large language model together. And we have developed many text mining tools for relation extraction, different type of entities, different type of relations. And eMind is a tool that I discussed earlier this morning that extract information on functional consequences of variants in the context of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. And for this pilot, we combine eMind output with large language models to write summaries and extract relation about impact of Alzheimer's disease. So this figure here shows how the results could be displayed, for example, on the UniProt website. On the left-hand side is the representation of this kind of varying impact relation, and on the right is the text summarization. And so the idea is that by combining the text mining and large language models will allow us to gain much more confidence and in the UniProt annotation. And again, this kind of tool approach is quite scalable, and one can bring in different kind of text mining tools, relation extraction tools for different tasks. So I also wanted to mention about this particular activity that we have in engaging the community to submit additional bibliography describing the publications that they have that describing certain functional properties of interest for annotation within the UniProt. And again, this can relate to many other databases, resources that people are developing by engaging the community. And so we have this community submission mechanism for author to submit their publication linking to corresponding protein entries. And so we are exploring using large language model to assist automatic solicitation of this kind of community submission. Again, on the top there, you can see that we have various text mining tools that can bring this kind of text mining evidence that then can be coupled with large language model to create a summary, as I described earlier. And then this could then be provided to the authors of those papers, who can then provide validation based on their knowledge of the publication. And so again, this is a way that not only the curators can benefit, but potentially a great way for us to engage the broader public in our this kind of database curation activities. So I'm going to shift from the UniProt project to a couple of projects that we conduct at the University of Delaware, where we use knowledge graph and knowledge networks. And so one is this open knowledge network project in partnership with University of Virginia and the Veteran Affairs. So this project is funded by NSF as part of their $27 million investment to bring multidisciplinary teams to create knowledge graph across disciplines, across scientific areas that will enable data-driven AI-based solutions for grant challenges. So here we integrate the biomedical insight with social determinant of health from scientific literature and electronic health records to mine association between social determinants and health outcomes. So as a case study, we are working with VA on mental health outcomes, particularly the PTSD and suicide prevention. At the patient level, what we would like to achieve is to predict individual risk factors within to inform the treatment of the treatment decisions. At the population level, then, is we wanted to see whether there are specific risk factors within particular facilities, particular regions, in order to optimize resource allocation and so forth. So we have established, again, a partnership with Veteran Affairs at both the local, regional, and national level. The Veteran Health Administration. And so as a pilot, we're going to be using synthetic data. As you know, it's difficult to get the patient data, especially when we are building out our framework, our system. And so this, again, the synthetic data, artificial data that kind of mimic the real veteran health information, but contain no personal details. And they are derived by real veteran records, but anonymized and statistically modeled. So within the VA, with this type of VA synthetic data, we do have the data dictionary on the data, such as social determinant of health, and we can then link that with the zip code information from census, and we can start building models, the graph model that I just talked about. And certainly there are ethical issues, and we do engage with our AI ethics team members, transparency, safety issues, and so forth. And so finally, I'm going to conclude with a project where we use a link prediction. There was some discussion earlier, I think, Pepe, you mentioned about using the link prediction. And so here, this is an example where we use the link prediction to study kinase substrate relationship. So we have developed a tool called Case Finder to learn about the semantic relationship in a knowledge graph containing information about human phosphoproteins, kinase function, pathway disease, PTM interactions, and so forth. And we use knowledge graph embedding algorithm to bring those information together and develop the embedded vector that could then be used in a classifier. And so we did a bunch of study, with great result and outperform current state of art, and was able to predict some understudied kinases, the so-called dark kinases. And we are currently in developing the Case Finder 2 with improved substrate kinase coverage. And in particular, previously it was at the kinase and protein level, but now we are looking into the particular site level. So we can really look into the PTM data from the proteomics and be able to use the site information. And we can bring the sequence, structure, functions, features all together, in this case, Finder 2. It's in the final stage of development with really exciting results. And we had a presentation at the Recomp. My student presented at Recomp, but it's pretty exciting results. Again, using the link prediction would allow us to predict otherwise unknown relationships, and that really is the power. Okay, with that, thank you.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot about your initiatives. So last but not least, we will have my colleague from the NIH ODSS office, Dr. Yanli Wang, to talk about some of the extramural program.
Which one is it? This one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you, June, and so thank you, our panelists for wonderful presentation. I learned a lot. So so my presentation will be short, brief, and so I kind of change the gear. I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now? Sure. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about the data science programs at NIH for the extramural community. So so my name is Yanli Wang. So I'm a program officer in the Office for Data Science Strategy, or ODSS. And so since I see a number of colleagues here at NRM, so previously I had been at NRM for over 25 years. So it was like meeting my colleagues is really wonderful. So also I heard people talking about PubChem, so that's something with text mining. That's something I worked before, and in the next door there is a event talking about ISIN 3D, the visualization tool for micro 3D protein structure. That's something I worked in the past. So it's a wonderful experience, this trip. I didn't expect it can be so, fruitful for me. So anyhow, so today I'm going to just provide some idea about the data science programs that is led by, the data science, ODSS. So the mission of ODSS, or the Office of Data Science, strategy is to provide leadership and coordination on the strategic plan of our data science across NIH. So what you are seeing in this slide are the goals and objectives of the data science strategic plan for the past 5 years. These include the development of a data infrastructure and to build modernized data ecosystem, and development, data management, analytics and tools, also workforce development, and last one, stewardship and sustainability. So going forward, so NIH put up a request for information, asking the community to provide input on the following any relevant topics, so people can comment on the whether the goals, the plan are appropriate, and the strategies and implementation techniques proposed to achieve them, whether are sufficient. So what are the potential benefits, drawbacks, or challenges? And so NIH welcome people and community to raise their voice on opportunities for NIH to partner to achieve these goals. To propose emerging research needs and opportunities that should be added to the strategic plan. So while we are still in the process of analyzing community feedback, these are the overarching data science strategic plan for the for the next 5 years. So these include the improve capabilities to sustain the NIH policy on data management and sharing, and then develop programs to enhance human-derived data for research, and provide new opportunities in software, computational methods, and artificial intelligence solutions, and support a federated biomedical research data infrastructure, and continue to strengthen a broad community in data science. So NIH implements the data science strategic plan through the supporting and funding research and collaborations. So actually yesterday we hosted a one-day event and to convene the NIH-funded researchers together. So we had three sessions, great sessions, focusing on ethics and equity for AI and computational research, and sustainable research software and tools in the cloud and beyond. And the third session is AI data readiness and smart health solutions, sort of looking into the future. So the research we shared yesterday, represent multiple program research areas, including AI machine learning readiness, that is to support the collaboration and bring together expertise from biomedicine and data management and the machine learning, artificial intelligence together to make NIH-funded data AI ready, because we know data is the key for AI machine learning research. And also includes the AI ethics bias transparency program, that is to allow us to support the understanding, a better understanding of the issues, the bias, also the development of the metrics, and the resource as well. So to facilitate, to make ethical decision throughout the generation and use of AI and machine learning. And AIM-ahead is a very important program. It established a consortium. So by working together to address disparity and inequities in the use of AI and machine learning, also to increase the participation and representation of underrepresented researchers and communities in the AI machine learning research, and overall to increase the capabilities for emerging technologies and for underrepresented community using electronic health record data and other data types. So NIH have developed a number of programs to support the exploration of cloud research. So really, help researchers to be utilizing the cloud computing environment and platforms to accelerate research and discovery. The program for software tools for open science was aimed to enhance the sustainability for research software. So we are developing on top of those were supplement programs for 4 years, and we are developing the R3 and R50 I'm going to talk about in a second on top of these programs. So, and the Smart Health program is a trans-agency program focusing on AI. So it's co-organized by NSF and NIH. So just something for you may be interested. So I just want to add that. So at our yesterday's food event, there were several talks describing how LLM were incorporated into their research, all the development resource. For example, how that was used to improve, the pipeline for curation for resource. So these are the new or upcoming funding opportunities. If you want to take a screenshot, you are welcome to do so. And the first group to build modernized data ecosystem. So the first two funding opportunities are one is R24, one is U24. So the R24 is for early stage biomedical data repository and knowledge base development. And the second one, U24, is for enhancement and management of established biomedical repository and knowledge base. So we heard, and Casey just described how UniProt was improved with LLM for annotation. So indeed, early on in February this year, and so Andrew, Casey, and June all helped us to organize the PI networking in-person meeting. So we call this program is called DRKB program. DR stands for data repository, and KB stands for knowledge base. So we had our in-person DRKB PI networking meeting back in February. And during that, the 2-day meetings, we heard a lot of exciting, reports and presentation talking about how LLM or generative AI were incorporated into the development or enhancement of the RKB resources. So that's, you may find relevance, this program and the LLM, which is the theme for discussion for this panel. And so the third one, promoting data reuse for health research, was just published, I think 2 months ago. So it's to help people to develop methods for data reuse and answer research questions to make use of NIH-funded data. So under the second block, enhancing software tools for open science. The first two funding opportunity, the R03, R50, building sustainable software tools for open science, and NIH Research Software Engineer Awards. So they are coming out really anytime soon. We try very hard to bring them to the street, had them published so before the ISMB, but however, there was a delay, but they can come out really soon. So stay tuned. And so the NIH Cloud Lab, I encourage people, everyone to take a look, especially if you are a student. So NIH provides $500 for any participant just to learn and get an idea how cloud works, and also to leverage on the bioinformatics support provided by NIH. And the second one, supporting the exploration of the cloud in NIH-supported research, is another funding opportunity that was also recently published. So if you have an active ongoing R1, U1, and many other, NIH grants, you may take a look into this to get additional supplement or support. And so the Smart Health Initiative, it is an R1 program. And so the program was reissued last August, and with a focus on smart health and biomedical research in the era of artificial intelligence and advanced data science. So the next submission date is October 3rd, I think. So if you, so the application will be submitted through NSF. But if you have the idea to have your research funded by NIH, so please check into the NIH notice listed on this slide to get an idea about, IC specific research interests that are described there. So the new opportunities in artificial intelligence for the next 5 years. So the new opportunities will be introduced and developed to support collaborations in developing social technical solutions, including guidelines and principles for ethical AI, as well as new technologies and methods for foundational models. So these will, help to enable and accelerate the translation of data to knowledge. and will enhance NIH capabilities in NI through partnership across federal agencies and communities. So the National Artificial Intelligence Initiative was created a while ago, and then there are the data science, artificial intelligence strategic plans on the at the HHS level to promote and advance trustworthy AI. In the executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence was issued by White House at the end of October 2023. So this executive order is meant to promote responsible innovation, competition, collaboration, includes investment in NI-related education, training, and research and capacity, and to establish the program to identify and attract top talents in AI, and launch a pilot program implementing the National AI Research Resource called NEAR that ODSS NIH is playing an active role, and to support 2024 Leading Edge Acceleration Project. And Aim Ahead program is among that the activities. So overall, so you may stay up to date. I mean, get connected and learn and stay tuned about research opportunities relating to artificial intelligence or LLM by checking NIH Guide. So for grants and contracts, that is a system, NIH official publication of notices of grant policies, guidelines, and funding opportunities, so which is published daily, and you can subscribe to that to receive update. Another tool is called NIH Reporter. It's a research portfolio online reporting tools that provide access to report data project funded by NIH, and so allow users to search the repository of NIH-funded grants and the associated publications and patents. And there is another tool inside called Matchmaker to allow one to find similar projects. So you can enter, your research, ideas and goals, aims, and to see whether, there are similar projects that are already funded by NIH, or you may find out, which program officials are running managing portfolio in those research areas. So you get idea who you want to get connected with. So I think I will just stop here, and you are welcome to get connected with ODSS. So these are the social media channels. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yanli. Now the floor is open. We've heard both research presentations as well as funding opportunities. Questions?
I can speak loudly. Hi, Kathy. I really enjoyed your talk earlier today. Covered a lot of material in a pretty short period of time. But one of the concepts that you talked about that I wanted to follow up on is this idea of being able to use chatbots to interrogate a semantic knowledge representation model, like a graph database representation, and then maybe return the results in natural language format. So I wonder if you could expand a little bit more on your experience in trying to take that approach, because I think a lot of us who are building graph databases, we're struggling for how to make them most effectively accessible by the user community.
Okay, Vishal, do you want to take on that? He's our colleague from EBI and has a lot of hands-on.
Yeah, hi. We have tried the notation extraction of the large language models, But I think what we have done is not rely on the named entity relationship of the model, but supply it through like embeddings and vectors in the prompt. So we first, for example, in the case of knowledge graphs, we will have the entity and the description as embedded vectors, and then we run the query against those vectors to fetch the first, let's say, 10 results, and then give it to the prompt to narrow down the focus of the prompt. So we are still trying out, but it's like an RAG system to sort of fetch the results from. Yeah.
Maybe just quickly mention. So Brooke actually just gave a talk at Biontologies today. So this is for the KG microbe knowledge graph. And what we do there is we use an LLM to make a cipher query based on natural language, get the results from the knowledge graph, which you can already look at, and then summarize those as free text. So that, I think, it's working pretty well. It's scalable. So we actually have done this for a few different knowledge graphs, and also just even an individual data source. So one of our sources is Backdive. This is very rich microbial source from Germany, structured data. And so you can point this this server, resource at this file essentially, and do the same type of query. Right? So I think this is actually going to be very powerful. Would love for people to develop this, right? Thanks.
So I'm not going to let this opportunity go to ask a question that has been on my mind quite a bit. So this is a text mining track. Text data is unique in many ways. What is the thought of you, Dr. Liu, your perspective and vision, and all of you on the panel? What is the unique challenges for text data with respect to render it AI ready?
I think I tried to outline some of them, right? I mean, the thing is, it's natural language. So you have all of the elements of natural language. You have semantic variability. You have, like, what is the purpose of language? The purpose of language is to communicate information in an efficient way. And it presupposes that we have a common understanding of words and phrases and sentences and paragraphs. And so to me, the key challenge, if it wasn't obvious from what I said, is that that we need to actually understand the language at some level in order to capture the relationships and the core information that's implicit in that. And so the challenge boils down to, it's messy, right? And the models themselves are not really, abstracting over the messiness in the way that will allow us to rely on them.
Right. And I think you point out, really, it's a great challenge in that how do we standardize we talk about control vocabulary, keywords and ontologies and things like that. And so again, it's a scientific issue, but it's also societal, right? It's a social aspect. And I know, Xiong, you all have been really trying to build a lot of these kind of standards. And so, yeah, we have been conducting challenge evaluations, and the NER problem still unresolved, and the relation extraction, and I think a lot of that is really due to that alignment, the semantic alignment to ontology, to control terms, and I don't know whether we have a solution or, yeah.
Yeah, well, those are exactly the kind of challenge we're facing every day. We've been working on that for a while, but I also say that in the era of large language models, given especially the one that we've out there that you can work with, there's also access over data, because large language is good at, because it has access to a lot of data compared to previous generation language models. But it's particularly challenging when you're talking about clinical data. Some of the things that you mentioned in your talk, related to electronic medical records or clinical notes, and that's part I don't think has been widely used, and it probably should not be widely used. as part of the training in their models. So that's certainly another challenge that if we're going to do something well for clinical applications, that's also what quite needed as well.
Yeah, it's as much about what is in the data as what's not in the data. And that's, part of the reason why I've been thinking about this paradigm of having a human in the loop, because if something's not in the data, then the model can't do anything. Right. And so, really considering what's not in the data that's relevant to a particular situation or decision or what have you is really critical.
And that really relates to equity. How do we create equitable systems? Yeah, I know Lars has been standing. Yeah.
So first, a comment actually on that question. You talked about how do we make text AI ready, and I would tend to say normally when it comes to data, to make data AI ready means that you have it in a format that is convenient for doing AI, which means that sort of by definition in my mind, text isn't AI ready. If you made text AI ready, it wouldn't be text anymore.
Well, that's not exactly true. I mean, we are converting, language into mathematical vectors, right? That's effectively what we're doing, and that's the process. And the tried and true approaches to NLP, which you are very familiar with, Lars, involve breaking breaking documents down into paragraphs and paragraphs into sentences and sentences into words. And, that's all part of the process. But we're never going to have a mathematical representation that corresponds exactly to language. I mean, that's what language exists for.
So my actual question was, where do you see things going in terms of larger and larger and larger language models versus going in the direction of maybe using small language models combined with RAG and so on? Do we still need large language models actually if we combine them?
I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to be concerned, even beyond the ones I've already mentioned, about large language models and their growth. And, I was quoting the news when I mentioned earlier that, OpenAI has said that they've basically run out of data. So they're not going to get more power from more data. And, we're going to end up in this crazy situation where we have these machines. Well, you were talking about synthetic data, right? So these machines are generating data that are then going to be absorbed into the machines. And, adding into the mix of intentional misinformation, we're now going to have, questionable information that's been annotated. And if that's the way we're going to generate more data to make these things grow, I worry a lot. But, also some of the work that we've been doing is to try to show that if you inject a little bit of knowledge and understanding and actual context into the problems, you don't need to learn everything from the data. I have an expression I like to share with people, which is, why learn it if you know it? And so part of, what you were saying earlier, Lars, when we're capturing knowledge in biological databases, that is one of the key resources we have in this domain. Let's use it. We understand the semantics of these databases. We understand what the things that are captured in these databases represent in the real world. So why do we want to pretend we don't know that stuff and have a model that just has to infer stuff that we already know? It's weird. So yeah, I think we should be moving, another example, calculator. Like if people complain, oh, you can't use an LLM to do math, basic addition, whatever. Well, I can't do it either. How many of you? Okay, work with me. 435 plus 12 plus 297. I lost you at 12. So we don't do that. So why would we expect a large language model to do it? We have calculators that we built, 60 years ago that can do that. So so look, I mean, somebody I think was talking about using the LLM to kind of work out. Oh, that was Yusaber earlier. Using an LLM to essentially do classification and then decide which system to use to actually answer the problem. That's the kind of thing we're going to end up with. Lots of little tools that are bespoke for or custom. Sorry, I'm using Australian language. Custom for particular applications, And I think that's the way we're gonna deal with the size issue as well.
Or you can also teach LLM to use calculators. Then they can do the math
That's what
correctly.
I mean. So like
Um,
recognize this is not something an LLM should be doing. Hand
Well,
it
well,
over
you know,
to the
in
calculator.
an example, in a study that we've done is we basically teach LLM to use the APIs of our domain databases, and that itself helps it to answer some of the domain questions that it would otherwise cannot answer.
Sure,
So-
but you've just architected a system that has multiple agents, let's call them, inside of the system. And yes, so then you have an agent which decides which other agent to access. Yeah.
So next question.
Yes, so this is sort of going off of what Karine was saying, but is directed for you, Dr. Yanli. So with the, what I think I heard you say was that for the DRKB or data repository and knowledge base program, you're interested in how people are using LLMs within that context to support or build. Can you clarify that? And then I'll have a follow-up question.
Yeah, I was simply, describing what we heard at our PI network meeting, that people were very excited, to describe how their exploration, for LLM in the process of, improving, enhancing the repository of knowledge base.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we may well expect actually that in the future, proposals, so when they come to some of those funding opportunity, people may well propose the incorporation of LLM. So,
And
yeah. And also, those are just a small set of, funding opportunity, of course. Those were just examples. And so each NHIC, they have their, many NHIC have their own, program funding opportunities relating to artificial intelligence. So you may also check into those as well.
well, thank you. Yeah, so that, I appreciate all of the opportunities and I have ideas, different ones, but specifically if somebody is applying for a knowledge base funding opportunity, my understanding is that you cannot propose like much in the way of analytics. It's more about.
That is true.
And
That is
so
true, yeah.
if there is some component where you might be using LLMs in a small way, could you speak to like what might be acceptable versus not acceptable for the knowledge-based
So,
funding opportunities?
I cannot, without knowing the details,
Okay.
I cannot, say absolutely what will be acceptable, what will be not. However, so for the DRKB program, so a significant software focus will be considered unacceptable. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the programs will request, for example, for knowledge base, will request, the significant curation. So how to put them together is almost the art. So yeah, I came from background, developing resource as well as research. So I understand what it takes. So, but people on the panel, they may have different, mindsets. So.
Well, I serve on that review panel. I think the key here, when you talk about large language model, really it's about the scalability. How can you scale up your curation? I think that's a key. And whatever approach that you propose, if it's LLM, so be it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
That
great.
is right. Also, there are, NRM has a funding opportunity. So for computational curation with scalability, exactly as well, Cassie commented on. So you may also look into that as well.
Thank you.
So now, okay, my watch, it's already 3 minutes past the 6 o'clock. So to respect everybody's time, so I'd like to ask if any of the panelists have any final words for our audience. Very briefly, though.
I'm wondering whether people are interested in a challenge evaluation really relates to what we discussed here.
I raised my hand.
Yeah, and yeah, we can probably open up for suggestion of ideas and sketch. propose something.
I would, I mean, you know, I've been having conversations with various people here. Like, I think the key point from my perspective is evaluating these systems and the applications where we want to use them.
Mhm.
Because, you know, they're, you know, superficially great, but it's those edge cases and understanding under what conditions
Yeah.
it doesn't work, under what, you know, with what kinds of inputs and prompts and,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
the scope, you know, where it works. And, you know, those simple probes, like, does it work with negation?
Right.
Does it work with, you know, certain contexts?
Right.
You know, the more encyclopedic the information is that
Yeah.
we're trying to get out, the better these things are. But we need to really understand
Mhm.
the edge
pot-
cases.
Then potentially it could be a challenge evaluation with human in the loop.
Yeah.
During the
Well, we have to
evaluation
have
process.
including domain expert in the loop.
Right.
I would say that.
Exactly.
Okay. With that, well, I'd like to thank the panelists again. I also would like to thank all the speakers of the day and my two wonderful co-chairs. So that ends this year's Text Mining Cozy. We'll see you next year. Thank you.